So, what is statistics? It is the science of collecting, organizing, analyzing, and interpreting data. Helps convert raw data into knowledge, supports better decision making, and is used in business, marketing, finance, healthcare, and more. The types of statistics are descriptive and inferential statistics. The descriptive summarizes data, like tables, graphs, and averages, and the inferential uses sample data to make conclusions about populations, confidence intervals, and hypothesis testings. Now, population versus sample. Population is the entire group of interest, and sample is the smaller representative part of population. Example, population is all university students, but the samples are only 200 selected students of that university.
Alright, thank you, Itzel, for sharing that valuable information. Now, following with variables and data, I'm going to explain key concepts about these ones. For example, where is a variable? Well, a variable is anything that can change or take different values. There are two types of variables. We have the qualitative variables, which describe categories such as gender, marital status, or region. And the quantitative variables, which are numerical, like age, income, and savings. So basically, the qualitative ones, we cannot measure them like with numbers, but we have to do that with the quantitative ones. Next, we have the measures of central tendency. This helps us find the center, as the name says, or typical value of a dataset. We have three main ones. The first one is a mean, which is basically the average of like the dataset. Then we have the median, which is the middle value when the data is ordered from smallest to largest. And the mode, which is basically the number that repeats the most, like the most repeated value. For example, if we have the ages 17, 18, and 19, 19, 20, 21, the mean in this case would be 19.4, and both the median and mode are 19, because when we order them from smallest to largest, we have 19, and mode are 19 because it's the number that it repeats the most. And finally, we have measures of dispersion. These show how spread out the data is. The range is the difference between the highest and lowest value. The variance and standard deviation basically tell us how far the values are from the mean, and the coefficient of variation help us compare variability between datasets. So, in conclusion, variables classify data, whether they are numerical or not, but the central tendency shows us like the typical value, and dispersion shows how spread out the data is.
Now, for the probability concepts, its probability values go from 0 to 1. 0 means impossible and 1 means certain. The rules are complement, that is this formula, that is addition rule and multiplication rule. Example, coin toss is equal to 0.5 heads. Remember, it's from 0, between 0 and 1. Now I'm going to talk about the concepts of normal distributions and sampling. First, let's talk about the normal distribution. A normal distribution is a bell-shaped curve. As we can see in the image on the right, this means that most of the data is concentrated in the center, and fewer observations appear as we move toward the extremes. In this type of distribution, the mean, median, and mode are equal, which means the data is perfectly symmetrical. Now, looking at the graph, the center represents the mean, and the curve spreads out of both sides. The percentage help us understand how the data is distributed. About 68% of the data falls within one standard deviation from the mean. Around 95% falls within two standard deviations, and about 99.7% falls within three standard deviations. This is known as the empirical rule. and it helps us understand how data behaves in a normal distribution. Next, we have the central limit theorem. This theorem tells us that when we take large samples, their distributions tend to become normal, even if the original population is not normally distributed. This is very important because it allows us to make statistical inferences. Finally, the sample size depends on three main factors: the confidence level, which reflects how sure we want to about the results; the margin of error, which shows us uncertainty when we are willing to accept; and the variability of the data, meaning how spread out the data is. In conclusion, understanding the normal distribution and sample help us analyze data more accurately and make better decisions based on statistical evidence. To conclude, statistics plays a key role in decision making. First, statistics help us transform raw data into meaningful decisions. Instead of just having numbers, we can interpret them and use them to guide actions. Second, sampling saves time and money because we don't need to study an entire population to obtain reliable results. A well-selected sample can give us accurate insights. Third, probability helps us manage uncertainty. It allows us to estimate the likelihood of different outcomes and make more informed decisions, even when we don't have complete information. Additionally, descriptive statistics help us summarize data, making it easier to understand patterns, trends, and general characteristics of the information. On the other hand, inferential statistics allow us to make predictions about a population based on a sample, which is essential for analysis and planning. Finally, all these tools are essential for business success today. Since organizations rely on data to improve strategies, understand customers, and stay competitive. Thank you very much.